Hi, it's me again. And I have something I really want to share. I want to talk about. I was doing a little scrolling and I came across this young lady who was weeping, openly sobbing on video. She could hardly speak. But the words that were on her, I think it was a TikTok or an Instagram, I'm not even sure what, one of those platforms. And it said something about my journey to self-love. And she was just weeping, as if she could not even fathom what that is. So I want to talk about that. You know, this has been my life's passion, is to help people in this kind of thought pattern and mindset of feeling like they can't love themselves or they're stuck. Now, in my line of work, I understand that that is a program set within us when we're very young. It's a program of having been hurt, abused, neglected, being bullied at very impressionable ages, where it just completely affects who we think we are. And then as children, you've heard me talk about this. If you followed my channel at all, followed me over these years and whatever, I've talked about this. I've talked about how children don't really know who they are, really, except by how they're treated and what they're told about themselves. So you can imagine if you are within a family where there's a lot of trauma, perhaps one or both parents are addicted or alcoholic or suffer from a mental illness. You can imagine a child being very affected by that, and any abuse that may stem from those situations, from those parents. Now, I know of what I speak. This has been my life's work. So I understand. When I saw her sobbing, I just went there quickly, because I remember days like that in my life, long time ago, but I remember that feeling. How can I love myself? What does that even mean? What does that even look like? So allow me to break that down for you. And I know in some ways I'll be speaking in general statements. There's a lot to cover and I can't do it in just a short video, but hopefully these will be things that you can think about. So first of all, it is a program within us. It was never meant to be there. That's not something that belongs in us. And so it should be rejected. It should be taken out of us, right? And that's kind of that sadness about it, because we're so attached to that, even though it's not right and it's dysfunctional. Pardon me, we've grown attached to that feeling of unworthiness and not being good enough or smart enough or pretty enough or thin enough or this enough or that enough or whatever enough. And most of those statements are shame-based. And a lot of shame was put on us as children that never belonged to us. Belongs to whoever put it there. But we take it on, and as children, we have to figure out, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with these feelings? They're overwhelming feelings that overtake us. And as children, we do our best to cope, right? And we build coping mechanisms around how to survive the bullying or the hurt or the trauma or the abuse. And children even who may even have lost a parent at a young age, and that is traumatic. And if there aren't supportive adults around us, helping us, guiding us, nurturing us, talking to us, getting us through difficult times, then it's left up to us, right? We do our best as kids, but we don't have adult minds, and we do not understand that that parent or that relative who is hurting us or bullying us or whatever is sick. They're sick. A sane person would never be that way toward a child. So they're mentally sick. There's something wrong with them, or emotionally disrupted in their life, emotionally immature. But see, we don't understand that as kids. We just think there must be something wrong with me. And then we build a story around that. And then we grow up. And that story is right there embedded in us. But we learn to act normal, try to fit in, do the right things, say the right things, wear the right clothes, wear the right makeup or suit or tie or whatever it is that we feel like we need to look like or act like to fit in. And yet inside we have these holes in us that hurt. And so much time has gone by, we're not even sure what that's about. We have certain behaviors that we've learned over the years. We have certain coping mechanisms that as children were genius, but when we drag them into adulthood and we just say, that's just who I am, I like to question that. You didn't come into this world to be a wallflower or to be codependent or to keep being in hurtful relationships. You weren't put on this planet to be a bully or to be angry or to be defensive all the time or hate authority, Those are extreme kind of behaviors that we take on because that's all we knew. It was hard to see the balance. And the other thing that especially teenagers tend to do, which is kind of normal, but is we try to look for our own validity, our own self-worth from external sources. We look to the outside, we look to other people, we look to how many likes we have, we look to what so-and-so might think of us, and did I impress them, or I hope I didn't, I hope I said that okay. We are always looking on the outside for validation when we feel worthless on the inside. And honestly, that's the worst place you can look for anything is on the outside, externally. Because no one is going to love you more than you love yourself. It's kind of true. So a lot of people who get into relationships with this big hole in them and this big hurt and angst that they carry, that they have, they expect the other person to fix it and to make them feel better and whole and beautiful and wonderful and smart all of a sudden and worthwhile and all that stuff. And that person has their own holes and their own dysfunctions and their own feelings of inadequacy. And they're hoping you're going to fill it up with them. That's how very dysfunctional relationships get together. And there are way too many of them. We need to validate ourselves and we need to love ourselves. So what does that look like when I say that? Number one, it's not about pride or ego. Those are whole other situations and we can talk about it, and I have talked about it on previous videos. No, self-love is valuing yourself. Self-love is respecting and honoring yourself. I can imagine you must have people in your life that you love. It could be other relatives, your parents or children, or a neighbor, the people in your life that you love. You like to be around. Why do you love them? What is it about them? And how do you show love toward them? You're probably kind and you're a good listener, probably patient with them, probably remember them on their birthday and give them cards or a little gift or something like that. You remind them that they're special to you, right? Well, this is what you have to do too. You must remind yourself that you are lovable, that you have so much to offer in this world, you're capable. Think about all the things that you've achieved. Seriously, write them down. And write about the good aspects of yourself. Seriously, write them down. Start with something like, I like my hair, or I think I have a good eye for color or fashion, or I think I paint well, or I'm good with children. I love children and I'm patient with them, or I have a good heart. I feel like I'm a good giver. I feel like whatever. I want you to write out your good qualities because I know you have them. Okay? So that's very important. So what's another way to learn how to love yourself? Oh, and first of all, when you look at your achievements and the things that you are good at and the good qualities and aspects of your life that you have and your abilities and talents that you have, I want you to look at them one by one and appreciate them and feel them. Know that they're in there. They're inside you. They're with you. And everybody they're going to have a little bit different list. That's okay because everybody's different, right? But acknowledge it and feel it, okay? As much as you can. And here's something else you can do. Is be aware of your own boundaries. If you lack boundaries, healthy personal boundaries, then you might be a person who's been taken advantage of, whose kindness has been abused or mistreated because you're too kind. And then you feel bad because they're upset with you. That's codependency. And oftentimes, when we don't love ourselves, that's something that can happen within us. We just want to be really, really liked and loved so much we will go out of our way for anybody at any time. And that kindness within us will be taken advantage of by the wrong person. When we have healthy boundaries and we allow ourselves to say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, I just can't do that today, but thanks for thinking of me. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I don't like being treated that way. When you yelled at me when you yelled at me or when you put me down or you think you're joking, but I know that it's a dig and it hurts. When you're able to express yourself, when you're able to have that line drawn in the sand of what your boundaries are, that builds respect within yourself too. So that's something we can all work on and have that self-awareness of healthy boundaries within us. Because we are not responsible for how other people feel. We're not. So in other words, out of kindness, you're expressing yourself. And if that person feels offended by it, then that's their problem. That's not yours. It's not like you went up and slapped them or swore at them or whatever. Because the bottom line is to be as kind as we can when we can and express ourselves very well of how we're feeling about something. So build healthy boundaries. That's another way that we show ourselves that we love ourselves. And it's okay to do that. Now, I've been around people who didn't respect my boundaries and they tried to make me feel bad for them. Like I was hurting them or I was judging them that was not the case at all. At all. So I knew when I thought about these things, I thought, okay, that's coming from their insecurity. I was not unkind. And I know I spoke out of love and also self-love, self-respect. And if they were upset by my boundary, which was very simple and human, then they had a problem with it. That wasn't my problem. So we have to understand we can't really take on the feelings of other people. If they're upset with us, they're upset because they didn't get their way with us. That's what that's about usually. So think about that as well. It's okay to have healthy boundaries. It really is. When you have good friends, when you respect each other's boundaries. I have friends like that in my life. it's like in a second, I just understand where they're coming from, and great, perfect. In fact, I love it when they express that, because that helps me to understand them better and love them better as friends. So there's a healthy give and take and understanding when you're with emotionally mature people that respect each other's boundaries. So there's that. So write out all the things you've achieved. Write out all the things that are good about you, about yourself, your talents, your abilities, the things that, anything. I have a pretty nose. I'm very patient with people. I love to be around people, or I love to study history and I'm fascinated by it. That's awesome. Because when you recognize more about yourself, all the goodness that's there, you can't help but love yourself like you love your friend, right? You're not going, and none of us are going, oh, look at me, I'm better than anybody else. That's not what this is about. It's having love and respect and honor for yourself. And I think a lot of people on this planet are just looking for it on the outside. They're looking for other people to validate them. Now, when we have a healthy self-esteem and we feel good about ourselves as much as we can on any given day, and it can fluctuate at times, I realize that. But as a whole, if we feel good about ourselves, that is so important, because then we're not easily flustered. It doesn't matter what so-and-so says about me. It might bug me, but it's like, but that's on them. That says more about them than me, because I know I'm trying to do my best in this life. So just know that about yourself. You have a lot to love. And if you're new to me and you don't know who I am, my name is Mary Alice Coleman. I've been a mentor and a coach for nearly 30 years for women mostly, but for men as well. I have studied and researched and done my own self-work in what trauma does in our childhood and how to overcome, how to understand some of the coping mechanisms we had to develop within ourselves, and then what happens as adults, how we're triggered by certain things. So I've covered all that, and look for it. Go ahead and if you're new to me, at my YouTube page, I know it's not fancy, I'm working on that, but under the menu, what you see is different than what I see, but I know I have live, so I've done a ton of lives on this whole subject matter, because that's been what I've been working on and wrote a book about and did all this stuff for 30 years. Look up the different subjects and see if they can't bring some encouragement to you or enlightenment. And then there's videos that say videos. So there's videos and lives, and you can click on either, and there's some information there for everybody. And I hope, and the reason I put all this stuff out there is because I'm getting older, and I really, really, really have a desire to help more and more people understand this whole way of living. How do we operate as human beings? How do we function? What does it mean to be triggered? Where does that come from? And how can we curtail it? How can we understand it better? What is emotional intellect and social intelligence? Emotional intelligence and social intelligence are extremely important to understand in our lives, because being smart is good, having intellect is very good, but I've known people in my life who are extremely smart, but when it comes to their own emotional intelligence, oh, sorry about that, my speaker just went off. When it goes through, when we don't understand our own emotional intelligence, and we haven't mastered our emotions in one way or another, we are not fully coming to the table as a mature adult, and we're easily triggered. When we are triggered, And a lot of people seem to be triggered by things that we don't need to be. This is why I break it down for you. Some people are more severe and definitely need therapy. They need help, maybe even medication. That is perfect, and they need to get that help. But when we can reverse engineer where triggers come from, that's kind of half the battle of understanding it. And then sometimes we can go, oh, I know what that is. Oh, I get it. And then it lessens the reaction that we may give out from being triggered. So that's something to look at. And again, it's on some of those videos. But understand that you and I are of spiritual DNA. We are spirits having a human experience. And if you haven't heard that before, it's so true. It's very important for us to nurture and pay attention to that spiritual part of our being. And there are all kinds of ways people can do that. And we've needed that. We've been recognizing that there's something to us and that part of us centuries ago, millennia ago. It's like we would look to the stars as humans and go, what is that? Where did that come from? And who are we? And how was I made? And what's that in the sky? And where did that come from? And all the questions since humanity began about who are we? Where did we come from? And what is this? You know, there's that longing in our hearts and our souls. We know that. Some people want to deny it. That's okay. That's their journey on this planet. But as a medium, I want to say, if you're denying anything spiritual, I can only understand it to be, because I've had conversations with people that they've had really bad experiences with religion. And I get that. I did too. And I get that. I really, really do. But we cannot equate the creative force of life, or whatever name you want to give. There's really no name we can really give it, but we try. To a fallible human being is a huge mistake. We somehow want to equate this huge, divine, creative force of life with a puny human being who is religious and made a lot of mistakes. There's no comparison. And I just want to say that, just go ahead and just think about that for a minute. Take time and just understand that, because what I wanted to say about this, about us having this spiritual DNA in us, is that we are loved. We are greatly loved. We are. And we happen to live on a planet with a lot of other human beings, and many of them wonderful human beings. We all make mistakes, but most of us are pretty decent human beings. And some, for whatever reason, and there's lots of reasons I won't go into now, aren't. And they cause a lot of pain and hurt in other people's lives. The way I see that is, it's not acceptable. I'm not accepting, bad behavior, criminal behavior, that's it. That's what it is. And there should be accountability for that, absolutely. But within myself, I understand now more than ever. It wasn't the trauma, it wasn't the action that was happening. It's what it caused within me. It's what that moment caused within me that created havoc in my life, and how I did not like myself and felt so worthless, so ugly, so just weeping. Like, why am I on this planet? Who could ever love me? Why am I here? I've had moments like that. Now, it's been a long time, but I remember it. And I think back and go, who was that person? Because I know better. I know that that is not reality. That is not truth. Anything that I thought poorly of myself, none of it was true. It really wasn't. It wasn't. It was too extreme, too harsh, too mean. And that's, we talk to ourselves in a way we would never talk to anybody else, right? We would never say some of the things to a friend that we might say to ourselves, right? It's so ridiculous. Why do we do that? And why do we compare our worst with someone else's best? Comparing is never an option. Never compare. Don't even engage in the idea. We can be motivated by other people. We can be inspired by other people for where they are and think, oh, I'd like to do that, or I'd like to be there. I'd like to do what she's doing or he's doing, or be that kind of speaker or author or athlete or engineer or artist, whatever. But we can't compare ourselves with other people who might have a lot more experience than we do. Because one day someone might compare themselves to you when you're further along and they feel awful. And I know you wouldn't like that. You wouldn't want them to feel that way. You'd be encouraging to them. You'd be helping them, right? And guiding them. Yeah, you would. Because you love yourself. You honor yourself. You see yourself in other people. We see our frailties and the ways in which we still need to grow and learn. But we love ourselves, warts and all, as they say, knowing that we'll just keep growing and evolving. And that's great. That's what we need to be doing, right, in this life. So I just thank you for listening. And I do hope that this has been helpful in some way or another, because believe me, I understand what it feels like not to love yourself. Or not even think you could love yourself, right? And what does that even mean? So I hope the few things that I expressed here was helpful, and that you actually do some of those things, okay? Because there's a fine line between hating yourself and loving yourself. It's just that jump over that line. And it's being willing to take that jump. And feeling uncomfortable at times, because we're so used to it. We've developed habits of feelings, right? We've developed this way of thinking about ourselves. It's more of a habit than, it's not reality and it's not truth. But somehow we've clung to this, and somehow it might have worked for us. Maybe we have wanted people to feel sorry for us. That's not a good place to be. We want to be in a position where we feel empowered and good about ourselves. And I believe you can get there. You can do it. You can do it. So just be willing to be a little uncomfortable with it, because I understand when we're in that mindset and we want to begin to feel better about ourselves, it will feel like you're being prideful. But you're not really. It's just because you're so used to not feeling good about yourself. And develop your boundaries. Think of what they are. Have some awareness about that, and understand your talents and abilities. Things you want to try. Try something new. Go for it. Go for it. Do it. You can do it. And yes, whenever we start anything new, it'll be a little bit awkward or whatever. If it's a new hobby you want to start, or crocheting or knitting or painting or whatever, we're kind of new at it. But you're not that new that long. In other words, you're going to catch on, and it's going to grow, and you're going to do things and practice it if you like it. And you'll feel like, oh yeah, I like this. I can do this. And you smile about it, and it feels good, right? Try something new. Because the more we do something well, the more we commit to ourselves that we can do one hard thing every day, you grow in self-esteem, you grow in self-confidence, and you grow in self-love. So understand that you're an amazing human being, and you're a miracle on this planet, and you definitely matter. Thanks for listening.